Hi everyone, my name is Salo, and for this project I researched the architecture Le Corbusier. Alright, so moving into a little bit of background about him. He was born on October 6th, 1887 in Switzerland. He was born into a small town that was known for its watchmaking industry, and his father was a watch engraver. His mother was a pianist and music teacher, which exposed him to the creative environment from a very young age. At 13, he left primary school to learn about engraving watch faces, which was his father's trade, at a local school that I'm not even going to try and pronounce. It was here that his teacher and mentor, Charles Le Platinier, which you can see in the painting on the right, taught him art history, drawing, and the aesthetics of Art Nouveau. Le Platinier convinced Corbusier to become an architect and even gave him his first few local projects. Right, now what was going on during this time period? So Le Corbusier was most prominent during the early to mid 20th century, a period that was marked by significant changes in society, technology, and art. He started gaining recognition for his works in the 1920s and continued to influence architecture until he passed away, sadly, in 1965. This time period saw a lot of different things, such as the aftermath of World War I, World War II, and the Great Depression. And so these events led to a demand for innovative architectural solutions, which can be seen in Le Corbusier's work and his modernist approach. Right, now going into a few of his early works, he underwent a series of trips throughout Europe, going to places like Greece, that played a huge role in his self-taught education. And during his travels, he made three major architectural discoveries that influenced his design. Number one being the contrast between large collective spaces and individual compartmentalized spaces, and this observation formed his vision for residential buildings. Number two, he saw classical proportion via Renaissance architecture. And number three, geometric forms and the use of landscape as an architectural tool. In 1917, Le Corbusier moved back to Paris after his travels and met painter Amédée Ozenfant, who became a close collaborator. They exhibited many different paintings that showcase languages of purism. One of his paintings can be found on this slide on the left, and this was created in 1935. In 1919, the data poet and essayist Paul Dermire, Le Corbusier, and Ozenfant established the international review L'Esprit Nouveau to promote purist aesthetics. Right, now while he was painting, he was still doing his architectural work. During the purist period, he designed a series of private homes, mainly in and around Paris, with clean geometric forms and modern building techniques. Some of his clients were Ozenfant, Jacques Lipchitz, Oskar Miatchinov, Michael and Sarah Stein, and La Roche. Two of the homes he created can be found on this slide. One was made in 1925 and the other 1924. As you can see, they're very geometric, and these were also studio-style homes, so that they were able to do their work in them as well. Right, now I wanted to take a step back and talk about some of the things that influenced his design. Number one being classical architecture, therefore understanding proportion, scale, use of light. Number two was Auguste Perret. He worked with Perret in Paris, and he was a pioneer for the use of reinforced concrete, and this introduced Le Corbusier to new construction techniques and materials that can be found in his later works. Right, then we have Peter Behrens, and he worked with Behrens in Berlin and was exposed to industrial design and the integration of art and technology. Cubism and Purism were contemporary art movements that emphasized geometric forms and the reduction of objects to their essential shapes. And then modernist principles, including functionality, simplicity, and the idea that form should follow function. And these can all be found in his works. Right, moving on to some of his architectural designs. He had the largest impact on the fields of modern architecture and city planning, and he designed many iconic buildings that had influential master plans. Right, so as you can see on the left, we have the Villa Savoy. This was completed in 1931, and it is arguably Le Corbusier's most renowned work. He used modernist architecture in this design, and as you can see in the photo, very sleek geometry. There are elongated ribbon windows, and then it's a little bit hard to see, but narrow columns that surround a curved glazed entrance. It's kind of back in the shadows under there. And this was also topped with a solarium, which is rooms with walls and a glass roof. And he used reinforced concrete and an open plan design in this piece of architecture. Right, moving on to the Unite Day habitation. This was a multifamily residential housing project that focused on community life. It was the first large-scale project for Le Corbusier. As we can see, it's much bigger than some of his other works. And it is said to have influenced the Brutalist style with the use of batten brute concrete. And this became an example of public housing across the world. I really like the colors that he incorporated. It's a lot of the same coloring that you can see in his paintings, and I think that it really adds a nice touch instead of just being a concrete building. Right, next we have probably my favorite piece of architecture by him, the Notre Dame du Haut. This is one of the earliest modernist churches, although it still has traditional church architecture such as stained glass, tower, and high ceilings that kind of indicate the pathway to heaven. The walls surmounted by a roof shaped like a crab shell, as we can see in the photo. I think this is a really unique piece of architecture, and I think the roof just really adds to the design of it. Le Corbusier paints the windows on the south wall with a range of colors taken from the loggias and paintings from the 50s, so kind of the same colors that were used in the last building he used on the inside near the windows. Right, then we have the La Roche-Generet project. These are two semi-detached houses, and it is now the Le Corbusier Foundation. Windows were very limited in this design, so Le Corbusier decided to incorporate light courts, a roof terrace, and skylights to kind of let in that natural light. And he applies architectural polychromy resulting from purist theories. I really, really enjoy the landscape, and I believe this really showcased how he used landscaping in his design methods. Right, moving on to a few more of his works. We have the Cabanon de Le Corbusier, which is the photo in the top right, and this was kind of a workspace for himself. I really love the simplicity of it, and I think that it is a beautiful, smaller piece of design. And then a couple of his other works include the Palace of Justice, the United Nations headquarters, which is in New York, Maison Curachet, the Palace of Assembly, the Heidi Weber Museum, Maison de la Culture, the National Museum of Western Art, Sainte Marie de la Tourette, and Saint Pierre. And these are just a couple of his works. He created many, many more designs, and here were just a few of the photos I decided to include. Right, as for his legacy, it is quite significant. He made a huge impact on architecture, fundamentally shaping modernist design. His ideas really emphasized functionality, simplicity, and the use of new materials such as concrete and steel. He influences many architects around the world still to this day and promotes a shift towards minimalism and practicality in design. Right, thank you so much for listening.